friends, welcome to new Happy Learning video. Today, we're going to learn about our prehistory. The first thing we need to know is that our prehistory is divided into 3 different periods: Paleolithic, Neolithic, and the Metal Ages. The Paleolithic begins with the appearance of the first human beings and ends 8,000 years before Christ. During the Paleolithic period, people were nomads, meaning that they didn't live in one place. No, they were constantly on the move, in search of animals to hunt. As they were hunters and gatherers, they needed to follow the animals in order to capture them, and at the same time, they collected wild fruits they found on their way. They lived in tribes, in small groups formed by families, and they found refuge in caves where they would paint on the wall. These paintings were done with a mixture of charcoal, earth, animal fat, and water. Look, here are a few examples. The truth is, it's absolutely fascinating to think that these first paintings, these first artistic representations, were drawn thousands of years ago, don't you think? Both Paleolithic men and women wore animal skins, which they had hunted previously. And they used tools such as an axe and spears made out of stones, wood and bones, which they themselves carved. With the passing of time, or rather centuries, these first human beings became more and more intelligent, and they began to domesticate animals, such as dogs, goats, sheep and pigs. They also began to cultivate plants, which were then eaten. With the arrival of agriculture and farming, everything changed. Man stopped being a nomad and became sedentary, and the first villages were made. This is when the Paleolithic period ends and the Neolithic begins. The Neolithic started 8 million years before Christ, when we discovered agriculture and farming. And it's finished with the beginning of the Metal Ages. Men and women in the Neolithic produced food by cultivating the land and domesticating animals. We can say that they were the first farmers and agriculturalists of our history. Better yet, our prehistory. As they had to look after their crops and animals, they constructed small villages and began to settle in them permanently, meaning that they transformed into sedentary, not like the Paleolithic, who were nomads because they were moving constantly. The first Neolithic settlements were situated in very fertile lands, near rivers so they could access water easily, needed for their crops as well as allowing their animals to drink. You know how important water is in our life. The first plants that were cultivated were cereals, such as wheat, or pulses like chickpeas. But do you know which were the first animals to be domesticated? Well, it was dogs, sheep, goats, and pigs. During the Neolithic era, many interesting things were invented, such as ceramic and fabric. But the most important invention was the wheel. Everything became so easy for men and women in the Neolithic, especially when they started using metals. This is the point where the Neolithic ended and a new era in prehistory commenced. The Metal Ages, which commenced approximately 6,500 years BC and finished when the first written language was born. The first metal which was used was copper, then bronze, which is a mixture of copper and tin, And finally, iron, which is a much more abundant mineral and therefore easier to find in nature. In order to mold these metals, they were melted at extremely high temperatures and transformed into the desired shape. This is how utensils like tools, weapons and decorations were made. This process is called metallurgy. Through metallurgy, crafts and trade began. The metallurgists were the first specialized craftsmen, as the metallurgy is a very complex and difficult task which few knew how to do. The rise of agrarian production and the appearance of crafts caused bartering, that is, the exchange of products. This is when trade began. Trade, over time, made some villages grow in size, turning into cities. This then created large commercial and cultural exchange between these new cities, and new inventions such as sailboats and wagons used to transport goods were made. Trade also changed society by creating social classes, the rich and the poor, the powerful and the slaves. During the Metal Ages, people began questioning the mysteries of life, as well as death, and the first religious representations arose. Constructions called megaliths were created with large blocks of stone. Mega meaning large, and liths, stone. The simplest megalith was the menhir, a large stone reverted vertically into the ground. Dolmens were also constructed, such as the ones we see in these images.
The Metal Age ended with the appearance of writing 4,000 years before Christ.
And with this, prehistory comes to an end, but history commences. Did you find learning about prehistory interesting? Paleolithic, Neolithic, and the Metal Ages? We definitely did, because by getting to know our past, we understand our present and make our future better. Goodbye, friends. See you next time.
Search us and subscribe to Happy Learning's YouTube channel.
Hello, friends. Welcome to a new Happy Learning video. As you can see in the images, today we're going to talk about pyramids, mummies and pharaohs. Today we're going to travel to ancient Egypt. Egypt is a country that still exists today, situated in northeastern Africa. But what we call ancient Egypt is a civilization that started more than 5,000 years ago and lasted for approximately 3,000 years. Its origins commences with Pharaoh Name, also known as the Scorpion King, who in 3200 BC funded this country at the Nile's bank. The River Nile is the largest river in Africa and was the most important existing thing for Egyptians, since they depended on its water to survive. Their whole civilization and cities rose from the river's bank. The Nile was so important because Egypt is a country surrounded by desert, and the cultivations could only take place at its shores. But it wasn't only used for agriculture. The river was also used to fish and hunt. They also used it as a great road to transport goods or large stone blocks used for their constructions. All of this was why the Nile was considered to be a god. Actually, ancient Egyptians had hundreds of gods. Some had a human's body and an animal's head, like goddess Bastet, who had a lion's head, or god Anubis and his jackal head. But the most important of all was Ra, god of sun, who had a falcon's head. The pharaohs were ancient Egypt's kings. There were many pharaohs over 3,000 years, but the most famous one was Tutankhamun. Ancient Egyptians believed in life after death, and therefore they were buried with their belongings, furniture, vases, clothes, and even food. They believed that this way these things could be used in the next life. As pharaohs had the greatest power, they wanted to have the best tombs, and they got them. These tremendous pyramids were built for pharaohs' tombs. Inside them, there are many tunnels, chambers, and secret passageways. When they died, pharaohs and some noblemen's bodies were mummified to preserve their bodies after death. These are the famous mummies. Mummies were placed in a sarcophagus, luxurious coffins that were covered in beautiful drawings and hieroglyphics. Hieroglyphics were the mysterious Egyptian writings. Their meaning was a mystery for thousands of years, but thanks to archaeologists, we can translate them and partly understand what they want to say. The truth is, everything in ancient Egypt's circle fascinates me. You already know that discovering the past makes us understand the present and improve the future. Goodbye, friends, and don't forget to subscribe to Happy Learning TV.
Search us and subscribe to Happy Learning's YouTube channel.